Welcome to Year of Connection, a year-long journey toward becoming whole self-connected. I'm your host, Pauline Shu. I hope you've been enjoying Year of Connection so far. I know you've been working hard at better understanding and defining your core values, your core connections, and your standards. I want to take this opportunity to reiterate that this is an ongoing process. It might feel like slow progress at times, but don't quit. Continuing to make connection a priority will require ongoing investment, but the payoff is worth it. At this time next year, you might even look back and wonder how it could have flown by so quickly. Speaking of time flying, I can't believe we're at the final episode of January. We're going to conclude this month with the discussion on accepting love, what it means, why it's important, and how to open yourself up to deeper connections through that acceptance. I'll also be sending out my first monthly letter at the end of January. If you're not already on my mailing list to receive this letter, please consider subscribing via my website at yearofconnection.com. I won't use your email address for any other purpose than sending the letter. Last week, we talked about being unwavering in your standards. I asked you to choose at least one standard that you defined for yourself and to stick to it all week long. I also promised that we'd spend a little time in this episode going over how that process worked for you. To that end, the first question I want to ask is, did you see any improvement in your relationships over the course of the week? I certainly hope you did. It might feel a little scary to change your life in this way, but I'm proud of you for doing it. It takes courage. If you did see positive change in places where your connections might not have been so strong, how did it make you feel? In which ways was it positive? Take a minute and try to define exactly what it was that changed in those relationships for the better. And if you take a few moments to compare those positive feelings back to your core values, they should be compatible. That consistency represents your truest self, and it should feel like a solid, safe place to be yourself. If, however, you didn't see any improvement or didn't feel good about your interactions during this past week, it's possible that the standard you chose, or even the core values it represents, isn't actually right for you. It could mean that you need to go back, reevaluate, and try this again. Or it could mean that something else is standing in the way. One of the possible obstacles we're going to talk about today is the acceptance of love. Accepting love is something important that we all need to do in order to make sure our connections can be built up and stay strong. Sometimes we don't realize we're blocking the path to our own happiness and to deeper connections with others because we're having a hard time accepting love. Think of your interactions with others as a constant loop. You're putting thoughts, feelings, and actions into the loop, and those travel forward, reaching all of your connections who then react to what you've cycled over to them. And then they feed it back to you with their own reactions. It is probably obvious that if you give negativity, you're probably going to get negativity back, and that process builds upon itself. But what if you've been working hard to put out positivity? What if you spent time being unwavering in your standards and you're still not feeling any better about your connections? Well, it could be that the person on the other side of that relationship is not responding well to your efforts. It could be that the connection isn't viable because it might not be changeable to fit your core values and your standards. But like we said last week, our goal is not to lose connections. Our goal isn't to first work on other people. First and foremost, we want to focus on where we might need to improve ourselves to make sure we are the best we can be. If, after that, we still find that some connections are not in line with our core values, we'll address that. But we're talking about fellow humans, and so we must take care with our decisions around how we treat them and how we connect with them. So, back to the remaining possibility of where things might be stalling in that feedback loop. And that is with your acceptance of positivity, with your acceptance of love. Are you building a wall between you and the love others send your way through that loop? If this is something you are struggling with, then it's possible that any positivity that your connections are sending your way is being diminished or blocked entirely by that figurative barrier. I was like this at one point in my life. How did it manifest itself? Well, for example, family and friends would give me compliments, and I would find a way to deny them, or to change the subject, or say something sarcastic or self-deprecating in response. I wanted to believe their compliments. I really did. But something was stopping me from doing so, and I didn't realize that I was frustrating the connections who were trying to give me love, and that they felt their honest praise was being belittled. I also shied away from certain opportunities to deepen connections, such as friends offering to do nice things for me, maybe treat me to a movie or bring me a meal when I wasn't feeling well, things like that. I saw those gestures as favors instead of love, and the problem with that is that favors tend to be logged in a mental ledger as opposed to love, which has no expectation of return payment. But in my refusal of those kindnesses, eventually my connections got the message that I didn't want to hear compliments. I didn't want offers of help or excursions. I was blocking that feedback loop. Now, the irony is that I would offer the same things to my connections, comments on a job well done, invitations to dinner, and they would receive that, react positively to it, and try to give it back to me. But time and again, my connections came up against the wall I'd built. So in consideration of my feelings, they stopped complimenting. They stopped offering. And then I began to wonder, what's wrong with me? Why don't I feel loved? Why do I feel so disconnected? It took me years to finally see that it was because I was blocking the path to deeper connection by blocking love. Does this sound like you at all? Is it possible that despite your best efforts, you can't seem to get closer to others because you have a difficult time accepting that you are worth their regard? If the answer is yes, or if you're not certain, or you simply want to confirm that you're already accepting love when it comes your way, I'm going to share some simple things you can do to start breaking down that wall and opening your feedback loop up to a more fluid, positive exchange. The first suggestion is small but important, so you might want to start here. And that is for this next week, in addition to continuing to taking your life notes and being unwavering in the standards you've chosen to uphold, anytime someone says something positive about you to you, say thank you, and that's it. Even if you want to immediately follow up with something like, but I don't agree, or, oh, you're being too kind, or any other way of denying or deflecting their compliment, don't do it. A simple thanks, no matter how it's phrased, is enough. Resist the urge to immediately follow up with a compliment to the other person as well. Even if it's genuinely meant, avoid the pattern of, you say something nice, so I owe you something nice in return. Along those lines, if you are a person who keeps track of what others have done for you so that you can pay them back, so to speak, it's important that you eventually get to a point where you stop doing this. Maintaining a tab for good deeds devalues connection by turning it into a transaction. If you are already good at accepting praise, or you begin doing this and don't have a problem adopting it into your everyday behavior from here on out, there's a bigger step you can take toward accepting love. This one might require getting past some social discomfort, so I suggest that you choose a connection that is strongly positive, one that has plus signs only in that connections grid that you made a couple of episodes ago. What I want you to do is this. Sit down face to face with that person, who will probably be someone close to you, and ask them to tell you all the reasons why they love you. That might feel awkward. It might feel silly or embarrassing, but go ahead and give it a try. Even more importantly, when they answer your question, don't deny their words or contradict them. Just listen, smile, say thank you, and accept their love. Does that sound like a challenge? No matter who you are, it probably comes across as a bit daunting. possibly even conceited. But you only have to do it once, and in this case, you can certainly reciprocate. It's not an everyday means of interacting, and it could even be fun. Remember the words that the person you choose shares with you. Write them down if you want. Those are words of love. They are the positives you contribute to the world that come back to you through that feedback loop. My husband has a friend who once shared a funny analogy about the gift of love. He likened it to the milk in a cow's udders. Sometimes, he said, the mother cow is practically bursting with the need to be milked, so she encourages her baby to drink. Certainly, babies of all sorts, including calves, need plenty of milk to grow. But from time to time, even more than the calf actually needs it, the mother needs to give it. If the baby cow refuses the milk, it's painful for the cow, and eventually the mother's milk supply begins to dwindle. This is probably not the most elegant comparison, but I like the message behind it. This episode's discussion isn't about taking everything and not giving back much in return. This is not a recommendation to take advantage of goodwill. Rather, it's a reminder to keep that milk flowing by accepting the love others want to give to you. Don't block the love, and in doing so, cause it to dry up until you have no more nourishment for your soul. This week and moving forward, go ahead and try to put into practice the idea of taking compliments with a genuine thank you. Remember that the more you do it, the easier it'll get. And if you have a chance to sit down with a close connection and receive the love that person shares with you, I hope you not only have a good time, but maybe you'll even learn something interesting about yourself. Regardless, I'd love to hear about how it goes. If you'd like to share your story, please send me an email or leave a comment on my blog at yearofconnection.com. There you can also check out the show notes for this episode. In this week, I share a few resources about the gender divide on accepting praise, an interesting companion to this episode's discussion. I'll see you next week. In the meantime, I wish you safe travels.